Pet Life Radio.
This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello, feline friends. This is Michelle Fern, your host on Cattitude. Now, when my producer came to me with the idea of my next guest, he said, cats are a liquid. And I thought I didn't hear him right. I said, what? What are you talking about? Cats are a liquid? Did you just say that? He said, yeah, cats are a liquid. And I looked at him like he might be drinking something other than coffee in that coffee cup. But he said, no, cats are a liquid. Check this out. And yeah, it is true to an extent. Anyways, my next guest will explain all about it. This is really cool, really fun. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back after this break.
It's designerpetsweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit designerpetsweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. designerpetsweaters.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I would like to introduce Rebecca Donnelly, who is the author of Cats Are a Liquid, and her illustrator, Misa Saburi. So welcome, Rebecca. Welcome to Cattitude.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm very excited to be talking to such a group of cat lovers because I think that's the audience for this picture book.
Well, I have to say, I've had a decent amount of books on Cattitude. My listening audience likes interesting books, but they're a little bit quirky. But this book, I think they would be nuts over. And I've never, ever, in all the... I've done close to, I know it's over 100 cat shows, at least. And I've never heard anybody compare cats or say cats are a liquid or compare them to a liquid. So where did this idea come about?
Well, I cannot take the credit for the idea. The idea itself comes from a paper, a real scientific paper that was written by a French scientist named Marc-Antoine Fardin. And it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. He was writing that cats' state of matter is liquid because they don't hold their own shape. If you put them into a box, their bodies expand to fill the box. If you then put the same cat into a bowl, the cat's body will conform to the bowl. And I think if you've spent any time on the internet looking at pictures of cats, you probably know what I'm talking about, or if you've seen this with your own cat. So this was an idea that the scientist observed, and then he wrote a paper about it, and it won something called the Ig Nobel Prize, which is a prize given out annually for these kind of satirical and peculiar but very real scientific papers. So when I heard about this prize, I said, oh, that's a picture book right there. I have to write this as a picture book. I can just see how I'm going to do this.
It's funny when you were saying how I've never thought about it this way, and I've thought about all kinds of cat things all the time, but it's so true. Cats do conform to the shape they're in, and I've seen it with my cats. I've seen it with, like you said, cats on the internet and different pictures. They do. They become the shape of the glass. They become the shape of the box that they squish themselves in. It's hysterical that how they do that. But it's even more interesting that you wrote the book on it, which is fantastic. So how did you go from, I understand it wasn't your original idea, but how did you go from his paper idea to, okay, I have to write this book. How am I going to do this?
Well, I should say this is not my first book, and it's not actually the first picture book that I had written, although it's the first one to be published. I was working on another nonfiction picture book at the time, and it was a rhyming book. And so when I heard this idea, a lot of writers, I think, do this where you're working on something, but another idea comes to you, and you have to jump right in there and start working on it. So I had this idea of rhyming because that's what I was working with. And I really liked the idea of this book being not a story, it's not following a particular cat. It's really a lot of rhyming concepts. So I use a lot of language that relates to liquid, cats fill, cats spill, cats flow downhill. And it just kind of goes on like that, with a few other lines in there to vary it a little bit. But I knew that because this book, it was going to be so visual, although I'm not an illustrator, I knew that the right illustrator would just have a field day. With this, I wanted to leave the text really very simple so that the illustrator could imagine the whole world of the story. So I think the text it's under 100 words, which really isn't very much. And then Misa Saburi, again, who is the illustrator, was hired by the publishing house, and she created this idea of a bunch of kids being tiny scientists trying to figure out, sort of the properties of cats. So you see pictures of kids in little white lab coats, and they've got, a cat in a beaker. They're studying cats as they sort of hold them and their bodies drip down. She imagined it so cleverly. And there you see cats as puddles and cats as clouds and all sorts of liquidy types of things.
I think the text and the illustrations are pretty clever. The text, it brings to mind Dr. Seuss because of how you said you wanted it to all, be liquid matters and rain. It just reminds me a little bit of Dr. Seuss. It's more simple, but have you heard that before?
I haven't heard that particular comment, although I think I know what you mean. I'm also a children's librarian, so I read a lot of picture books. And there's definitely, he was very well known for doing rhyme, but also for his reader series they were funny and clever for kids, but they were not above their reading level. And yeah, I think I will say I wasn't definitely not thinking of Dr. Seuss as I was writing this, but I did like the idea that it's a picture book that a kid could probably read aloud once they got to, kindergarten, first grade, something like that. The words aren't too difficult. There's a lot of rhyming, which makes it really easy for kids to sound out words. So,
yeah. And then how did you go about figuring out like the states of matter and like deciding on which ones? And I really like this one. Cats train, aim, maim. Uh-huh. Yep. And
yeah.
There's a few of those in there. They they're innocent, they're lying there, and all of a sudden, yeah, right, here I come.
Right. And there's the sort of refrain, I guess you could say, is cats are a liquid except when they're not, because, if you've ever tried to get a cat in water, give it a bath, or, seen it accidentally get wet, that it doesn't take to it. Most of them don't take to it too well. So that's when they're solids. They're liquids when they're comfortable, and when you want them to do something that they are not interested in doing, they are very solid, and they definitely have their own shape.
Yes.
And then the third state of matter, I guess, would be gas, and that's really only on the very last page. The last 3 words of the story are evaporate, precipitate, disappear, and that's sort of like when you are trying to find a cat, and you cannot grab hold of them. They just sort of jump out of your hands, just kind of like a molecule of a gas, a little bit of liquid in the air that you can't see. The cats, so on the very last page, they're all leaping off of the page.
Yeah, and that's true. They're interested until they're like, nah, I have better things to do. I'm done. I'm done with this. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, I want to talk about a theme that you had throughout. Well, I noticed in a couple pages, at least, that I thought was really cool, and this really neat experiments at the back of the book. So I'll be right back after this break. Hey everyone, Michelle Fern here. I have discovered a great brand called Dr. Elsie's. They are truly focused on your cat. One of their mottos is, we've always put ourselves in our pet's paws. I just love that. And did you know the number one behavioral reason that cats are either abused, abandoned, or returned to shelters is doing their number ones and number twos outside the litter box? Yep. And let me tell you, I have been dealing with that for quite a while with one of my kitties, Charlotte. I have a multi-cat household like so many of you, and no matter what I tried, she refuses to use the litter box, and I have tried everything. Nothing worked. And then I found out about Dr. Elsie's Cat Attract. Now, most cats are not that picky, but almost every household has a Charlotte, and that cat will be persnickety about using the litter box with other cats. Well, Dr. Elsie's Cat Attract is a product that helps bring cats, like my persnickety Charlotte, back to using the box. And Dr. Elsie's is so positive that you will love their product. They're going to offer a rebate and pay up to $20 for your first bag of any Dr. Elsie's litter. You can visit drelsies.com/Cattitude and print out the rebate form or fill it out online. I will also have it on my Instagram, which is @Cattitude17. Give Dr. Elsie's Cat Attract litter a shot. You will not regret it. Happy cat, Mom. Happy cat.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to Rebecca Donnelly, and she is the author of the children's book Cats Are Liquid, which talks about how cats kind of emulate some states of science. Is that how you would put it? States of science?
I would say states of matter.
States of matter. Well,
yeah.
Okay, close. I was close. States of matter. And one thing that I like about the book that you put in there, at least I saw it one time, adopt, don't shop. And your illustrator has her dedication says to all cats waiting to be adopted. So I think that was really cool. Are both of you very big proponents on shelter cats, adopting? Does the book have any relationship with shelters?
Well, so I will say that the words adopt, don't shop, they appear on a child's T-shirt. And I 100% agree with the sentiment, but I didn't have anything to do with putting that in there. That, again, was completely Misa's idea. But yeah, I actually, this past Saturday, visited my local Humane Society to do a reading, and I brought some copies to sell. My local Humane Society is wonderful. I've done programs there as a librarian where we come in and I bring kids and they read to the animals. And this time, they brought a couple of cats into the room so that kids could look at them. And I do think that one of the families that came was getting interested in adopting a cat. I'm 100% behind that idea.
I love it. And I always say on the show, it's nothing against breeders or anything like that. I don't want to alienate one group, but there's so many cats that are out there waiting to be adopted, and I know that was probably Misa that added that in, but you go, girl. I love that. That was great. So
that's great.
What is this experiment? Even though the book is, rhymes and everything, you do have a section in the back that talks about science on a very, simple level. Are cats a liquid? And it talks about the matter and so forth. But it's very simple, especially if many of us can think back this far, how ice, water changes form, from water to ice.
Right. And that was the idea, is because this is definitely not a nonfiction book, but it is, I think of it as sort of lighthearted STEM or silly STEM. If you were a classroom teacher with, elementary students, you might read this as an introduction to a unit on the phases of matter. This would be kind of a fun way to get kids to think about it, and then you would get into the actual science of it. And my editors actually did ask me to write out kind of an explanation what the phases of matter are. I provide a link if anybody wants to read about that paper that I was talking about earlier. And then the activity, it's so funny you mentioned Dr. Seuss, and I said that I wasn't thinking about Dr. Seuss, but he's the one who made up the word oobleck. I don't think he made up the thing oobleck, which is a mix of water and cornstarch. But I remember growing up, if we made oobleck in science class, that is what we call it. I know some people call it something different today, but cornstarch and water have this amazing property when you mix them together in the right proportions, where in some situations they behave like a solid. So if you mix it together and you put it in a bowl, you can actually take your fist or your hand and kind of smack it, and it'll resist. It's almost like it's a bowl of something solid. But if you put your hand through it, if you try to lift it up and take a handful of it, it's a liquid. You cannot pick it up. It doesn't clump. And that just seems like a really interesting metaphor for this, cats are liquid until they want to be solid. And oobleck is very much the same. So that's kind of a fun way to tie that concept into the book.
That's really interesting. And I don't know, maybe I was absent when they did this experiment, but I don't remember it. Or maybe they just didn't do it in my public school. I don't know. But that's really cool. And I like that you also mentioned not to pour it down the sink, just like you don't put a cat down the sink. But
I didn't want parents to be angry with me, so I had to say that. It will absolutely cause plumbing problems.
Right. And I also love that you could find out more about oobleck, but also that you gave credit for, about the scientific paper that started it all and learning more about states of matter. I just think that is all very, interesting, and I love it. So I know that this is a children's book, and most of us that are pet parents, especially cat parents, we have kids in our lives. They might be your neighbor's kid. They might be kids you teach. They might be your grandkids or your nephews or nieces, or maybe just your fur babes and you want to read to them. Hey, why not, right? So there's always, and this is just such a fun book. And it's so interesting and it's so unique. It can even be, because it's a nice size, kind of a mini coffee table book because it's not super thick, but it's so different. If you ever needed a conversation starter, this is it. Because did you ever have any experiences, Rebecca, where you told someone, I'm writing a book called Cats Are Liquid, and they looked at you and went, what?
Many. It was always a little bit funny to try to explain it to somebody. And then as soon as I mention the idea of, maybe seeing these pictures on the internet, then people start to go, oh, yeah, I have seen that. But then I think the beauty of picture books, and is just when they're done right, you can immediately get it. You look at the cover, you get it. You look at the first couple of pages, you get it. And I think you're right. It does almost function like a coffee table book because it is something that is just so amusing. And my hope is that it goes beyond the core picture book audience of like preschoolers and pre-kindergartners and that sort of thing. And I really hope that pet parents love it. And I hope that science teachers use it. And I even hope that English language arts teachers use it for poetry or, brainstorming ideas. I think the concept is just so funny. There are so many different ways if you wanted to use this book. There's so many different ways that you could.
It is. And, as you were saying, talking about it, I was thinking, and I've done some teaching in my past, and I think this would be a great gift for any cat lover, any cat pet parent, but especially if there are little ones, because you know how you mentioned science and there's some little ones just draw a blank, like they're not into it. That's not me. They're just draw a blank. Mm-hmm. Or even for little ones that just with school or homework, just blank. This is a great way to open up to them and try to get some attention from an unusual source. I mean, how great is that? If I was a teacher, a science teacher, I would have this book. I think maybe second grade, younger, right? Kindergarten, first grade, preschool, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you could definitely read it to preschoolers and kindergartners, and then when you get into that sort of end of kindergarten or first grade, second grade, then you can definitely start using it in other ways to support different parts of your curriculum. And I think there are a lot of books now, books for children that are trying to do that. So yeah, I like seeing that more and more with more types of books.
Yep, and I think it's great. What is your favorite form of cat? Like, because you have different liquids in there, and there's so many cat forms. So what would be your favorite cat form?
My favorite pet form, I'm going to say it's actually one of the ones that is not quite as liquidy. It's on the page that just says blanket nap because all of the exhausted scientists are cuddling up with their cats. That's probably my favorite.
Oh, I love the bathroom one. So
That's,
true.
Oh, that one is hilarious. And I do love the ones that have static electricity and they have things stuck to them. The balloons and the
that
packing
one is a
peanuts
great
and
one
that sort
too.
of stuff.
The bathroom
Yes.
one is like my okay, we're not going to get so personal, but the bathroom one with the toilet paper, I'm sure many cat lovers out there, pet parents can
Yes.
Oh, yeah, the blanket one is really cute. The bathroom one, I can relate because for a while it was hide the toilet paper because Molly was going to take it into, but the problem is, when you're in the bathroom, hide the toilet paper. Where can it be?
Right.
So that's the other problem. But that's all I'll go on about bathrooms. But yep, all of these, so true. And the one with the cats are liquid when they're by the window, and the little boy's the scientist is eating ice cream. They almost look like fish, like they're so languid, just swimming.
Yes,
in the sun.
If you look in that sunlight,
yes,
wherever their body is in the sunlight, they look flat. I think Misa did an amazing job on that page.
Yes.
That's
she
beautiful.
did an amazing job, and so did you. Now, where can we find your book? Cats Are Liquid.
I am always happy to support independent bookstores. So you probably will be able to find it at your local independent bookstore or online at IndieBound, which is the independent bookstore's online kind of group presence. You certainly can also find it on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble. It should be available in anywhere that books are sold, and if it's not there, it should be fairly easy for them to order.
Okay, and Rebecca, you've mentioned you're in the process of writing another book?
They're always in the process. I have my second picture book is coming out in March, and that one is on a completely different subject. But Misa and I do have a follow-up to this one coming out in, I think it's 2021. It's not to do with cats, but it is based on another similarly weird scientific paper about banana peels. And that's all I'll say about that.
Okay. And do you have a website or an Instagram where people can follow you and find out more?
I have a website. It's RebeccaDonnellyWrites.com, and that's Donnelly with 2 N's and 2 L's. I'm not on Instagram. I am on Twitter, and that is @_Becca_Donnelly.
Okay. And for everybody that's listening, we'll have for this episode, we'll have the information to Rebecca's website, so you can link over there. And I'm sure your website will have your Twitter information as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I love the book, and I think it's so unique, so different. And best of luck with the book. Now I'm intrigued about banana peels.
Well, when you start a fruit podcast, I'll come back.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much. Well, that was a lot of fun. And I have to tell you, if you are even the tiniest bit intrigued about this book, you must go check it out. It is a great little book, and it's so much fun, and it's so unique, and it's so different, and I think it's just fabulous. So it's called Cats Are Liquid, and if you missed where you can get it, or want some more information about Rebecca Donnelly or Misa Saburi, you can find that out on the episode page for this show, and that is at PetLifeRadio.com. Just look under Cattitude and look for the show, and there'll be that information. It'll have a picture of the book and a link to Rebecca and Misa's website. So I would like to thank my very liquid cats, Dennis, Molly, and Charlotte, and Jethro, and Sammy, and the new one, Jax, for being the liquid cats they are. And I'd have to say my most liquid cat must be, I think, Sammy. She's pretty liquidy, And then other than number 2 would probably be Dennis, and maybe 3, Molly. But get the book. This is a great book. Now, keep listening. We're going to have some more great shows coming up.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.